Hi again, everyone, and welcome to another edition of RedHawks Weekly alongside Eric Peterson from the Forum and Keith Brachold, first baseman for the RedHawks. I'm Jody Norstedt from WDAY. And what a wild game it was on Monday night. The RedHawks taking on Sioux Falls, the Canaries, and it was all going smooth, and the RedHawks were blowing it up in the eighth inning, a 5-run eighth inning. Nick Jackson with a 3-run triple, and all of a sudden the power went out. But guys, here's some of the early highlights we're going to take a look. Alex Caldera was throwing well on the mound, and the bats started to wake up here in the bottom of the first and then again later in the fourth, Eric. But the RedHawks get some big runs. Here's Mr. Brachold himself ripping a one to right.
Yeah, you went down to Gary, had a tough series, split a 4-game set against the Gary team, which is playing really well and tough to play in their ballpark. Come back, like you said, Alex Caldera gives them 6 solid innings, gets some early runs. I think a 4-1 fourth gave them a 6-run lead, and they scored so many runs in the eighth inning, they took the power out of the whole stadium.
Well, let's talk about that because the game started late. It was a 48-minute rain delay. Then once they got started, they played, and you're not going to see it here because we were already back at the station cutting highlights of this game. And I think our newscast was even over on the TV side of things. And then all of a sudden the power goes out in the eighth inning, a 57-minute power outage, and guess who was at the plate? We planned it out perfectly. Keith Brachold was coming up to bat. What did you think when the lights went out?
Man, they've been playing The Power of Love by Huey Lewis in the News for my walkout song, and right when they started the song, the lights went out. I was just waiting for the DeLorean to come out screaming from center field. I think it was too much for the voltage, but yeah, not that fun when you're about to go hit in a game like that. That's kind of getting out of hand and winding down. When it's your fifth at bat, you kind of want to go ahead and get that last one out of the way. So when the lights go out and you got to sit there and kind of get iced a little bit, not ideal, but.
And people think it's a once-in-a-lifetime thing, but this has happened to you before. That's ridiculous.
Yeah, it happened to me once before. The lights went out at an older stadium in Massachusetts I was playing at, and I was actually hitting that time as well. I had a count on me, I remember, and they couldn't bring the lights back up, so we had to finish the game the next day.
Eric, from your standpoint, sitting in the press box, what was that like? Because you have a higher-up view of the whole thing. That had to be pretty crazy sight.
Well, I'm hacking away on my computer hoping I can make deadline. All of a sudden the lights go out and I'm like, I don't know if this story is going to make the paper, but it was the first time for me. I'm not like Keith here. I'm not experienced in blackout situations, but just an interesting thing. And the kind of the more frustrating thing, I'm sure, for the players and everybody, it was 4 outs away from being over in theory because they just had one more out in the bottom of the eighth, and if they get 3 outs with Sioux Falls in the ninth, the game's over. So you're that close to the finish line, and you got to sit around for an hour and come back and try to finish up the last 4 outs.
Well, the RedHawks did win the game when it was all said and done at 11-3, and I think it ended about 11:40 at night. So hopefully you caught that score late. So now they're 10 games above 500, 33-23. Keith, this team is really playing well, and you guys are, the goal is probably to try to keep extending that division lead in the North Division.
Sure. I mean, right now we're playing good baseball, and we're expecting to win every night. Every time we go out and touch the field, we're expecting to win, and that's a really good vibe to have from a team. We don't really care who we're playing right now. We don't care who we're facing on the mound. We just want to put a good game together and look to win each game.
We're seeing some footage of yourself right now with the RedHawks this season. Here's a nice play of first base. They're showing off your glove. Are you feeling comfortable back at first base? Because I know, haven't you spent the last few seasons in the outfield?
Yeah, I grew up playing first base, and this is my first year, probably in about 15 years, a full season at first base. Wow. So it took me some time to get comfortable over there. And when you're an outfielder, it's kind of easy just to relax and kind of let the game come to you. But the game works a lot quicker when you're in the infield. And a lot of these guys, a lot of these big lefties can hit the ball pretty quick over there to you. So it's a different level of focus. And I'm really starting to feel more comfortable though.
Now, you grew up in Norfolk, Massachusetts, went to high school in North Attleboro. You should be a Red Sox fan, right? But no, about 45 minutes from Fenway Park, but instead you took the 200-mile drive to Shea Stadium. Tell us how you became a New York Mets fan in your childhood.
Well, growing up, my father was a Mets fan, so kind of my first interest in big league baseball was the Mets always. I remember we would check the scoreboard in the paper every morning right when we woke up to see how the Mets did. And we made that trip out to Shea Stadium, a bunch of times, a few times a year. And I know I'd been at Shea Stadium probably 10, 12 times before I'd even been to Fenway Park. So it was just natural for me to be a Mets fan. I grew up on the 1986 World Series highlight reel between the Mets and the Red Sox. So, all of the frustrated Red Sox fans in my neighborhood, it was just kind of fun to be the devil's advocate and be rooting for the other guys.
And it's interesting that you bring that up, the 1986 World Series, because you played for Bill Buckner, the Red Sox, I should say, Red Sox first baseman that botched that play in the 1986 World Series, and then you went on and played for him with Brockton in the Can-Am League.
Yeah, that was quite a trip. When I found out he was going to be the manager, I was excited about it. Again, I must have watched that play on a highlight reel, 1,000 times. So, as I've gotten more experienced in my career, it's been great to meet some of these guys that I grew up watching and idolizing. Sure. And it's always kind of fun and different to see these guys and realize that they're just guys. They're just just like us. And it was a blast playing for him and just kind of hearing some of his experiences.
Did you ever tell him that you were a big Mets fan?
Yeah, I told him I was a Mets fan.
Did you tell him about your dog?
I did tell him about the dog, but after a couple of weeks of warming up to him first, that wasn't my first conversation with him. But I played the game hard, and he respected that. So me and him had a pretty good camaraderie, and eventually I felt comfortable telling him about my dog, which I named Mookie Wilson. Who was, of course, the guy who hit the ground ball through his legs, the infamous ground ball. So, it was a lot of fun.
Did the ground ball ever come up with Bill Buckner, or did people who played for him just not want to bring it up, thinking it could bring up some painful memories?
We never talked about it. Early on, it was kind of something that we were all kind of whispering under our breath, and there's a little bit of awkwardness and tension regarding the play, who's going to say something first. And of course, like any other clubhouse, we had a couple of characters in there, and we all thought that someone was going to go ahead and break the ice. But it never came up early on. And then, like I said, he was just our manager. A couple weeks in, he wasn't really Bill Buckner, the Red Sox anymore. He was just our manager. It never came up, and he never brought it up, and that was it.
Well, the home run derby was last night. I know you're a guy that likes to hit home runs. You hit 29 of them last year and led the Can-Am League. That's part of the reason the RedHawks traded for you. You've hit 9 so far this year. Have you ever been in a home run derby or anything like that?
Yeah, I think I've been in 2 home run derbies in college, and I was terrible in both. I think I don't know if I hit a single home run in a home run derby. I remember one I traded up to a bigger bat with one of my buddies. I thought a bigger bat would get me a little bit more power, and I couldn't even get it around. I think I hit like 7 out of 10 balls, just little ground balls over to third base, which wasn't the plan. But I've been in a couple and never had a lot of success. I don't really consider myself a big batting practice home run hitter type guy, but I'd rather get them in the games anyway when they count.
Eric, you ever hit any home runs?
If we count softball, I hit plenty of home runs.
Yeah,
I don't know
you
about
go.
baseball. I got 1 or 2 career baseball home runs, but softball, I hit a few out of the park.
Let's take a look at the standings right now for the American Association North Division. The RedHawks, as we mentioned, in front with a 33-23 record, 4.5 games up on St. Paul, 7 up on Winnipeg, and 10 games up on Sioux Falls, who came into the series winners of 5 straight. So the RedHawks really taking it to one of the hottest teams in the division. They have 2 more against them. They played tonight, Tuesday night, and then Wednesday night before getting back on the road. Eric, I guess we do it every week. Do you have a player to pick this week? Who's going to get hot?
Well, we've had the kind of habit of just picking batters, so let's switch it up a little bit. And this guy's been hot, and I think he's going to continue to be hot, is Taylor Stanton. He's given this team quality start after quality start. I like his stuff. I like his makeup. I think you can continue to see him pitching some good outings for him.
I'll go with Tim Alberts. He's just such a big man, and he can hit the ball a long ways, like a lot of these RedHawks players. How have you gotten along with some of these big hitters?
I mean, great. All good guys, and we have a lot of alike type hitters on the team. Guys that have the same type of approach, and guys that do it from either side of the plate. So it's great to have that kind of competition within our clubhouse. My batting practice group is with Tim Alberts and Ronnie Borkwin. So we have a nice friendly competition. You know, when the wind's blowing out, we try to pop a couple over so you can get more out. But it's you know, to me that's one of the most important parts of having good chemistry and you know, a good kind of a foundation with a team is to have the competition within and always, you know, be striving and working to get better. I keep telling Tim, who's leading the team in home runs, that I'm going to catch him. I will one of these days, but he's still got me by a couple. And every time he hits one, I tell him, you know, you better get on his horse because I'm going to catch him. So I love having that type of thing going on.
Well, it's time to, I guess, have a little power outage. We'll see you next week. For Eric Peterson and Keith Brachold, I'm Jody Norstedt. We'll see you next time on RedHawks Weekly.